Hello everybody, welcome to WhatCulture Gaming. I'm Scott, joined by Josh.
Hello, Scott.
Josh, my friend, all sorts of things are coming out about Halo Infinite. Now, for the longest time, I've kind of wondered about what the reality of the behind-the-scenes machinations were for that game, because it just seemed like stuff wasn't coming together. And thanks to a report over on Thurrott.com, great name, by Mr. Brad Sams, he's written up everything that he's been able to find out, starting from way back before E3 2019. Apparently that was when he first started getting wind that the project itself wasn't coming together properly. And apparently back then was when Microsoft initially started talking about, or Xbox rather, started talking about splitting the project so that it would be single player and multiplayer would be able to release at different times as a way to get on top of the schedule. There's way more to this report that just outlines, you know, what the hell's happened with Halo Infinite, and it boils down to sort of kind of 3 or 4 main strands. So we're just going to sort of get to them. And assumedly, well, Jason Schreier has said that he's going to be doing his side of things for Bloomberg as well, so more details will come to light in the coming months. So yeah, the initial thing was that before E3 last year, that was when things started to initially start to get a bit fractured. One of the overall points to take away, though, is that, and this is his phrasing, that the engineering and marketing teams have been on 2 different planets for the majority of the project for the last couple of years. And apparently engineering were always trying to push for delays, saying that, look, the game isn't coming together, because another major factor is that they outsourced a ton of the development to third-party contractors, which is a common practice, but apparently it was on a scale that isn't usually the case, that they had to outsource more than usual to try and get the project to come together. And so because of that, 343's side of the engineering people were always saying, look, things aren't coming together and we need to wait. Whereas the marketing team, the example given is that the marketing team still went ahead and said, look, multiplayer is going to be 120 frames per second. Don't worry about it. Everything's fine. They even mentioned that the E3 2019 trailer was also outsourced, or he assumes that it was because of all this stuff, and that the moniker on the bottom that says, or the disclaimer that says in-engine footage or game engine footage isn't really true, and that they were, you know, putting that together back last year in the middle of everything. Initially, what are your thoughts on this? Because I've been blabbing for 2.5 minutes, Josh Brown.
No, it's good. It's good information, mate. It's like stuff that needs
so
to be
much
kind
more
of like
of it, mate.
Talked about, I suppose, because it's crazy that essentially this has happened again. One of the biggest criticisms of Halo 5 was that the game didn't match up with the marketing, and now we've got a team working against the marketing department, not in the exact same way, not literally making a different story than what was being sold, but like the thing about the first trailer, or the E3 trailer, like it was in-engine footage, but it was nowhere near what they could guarantee they would, like the fidelity they'd be able to kind of deliver on. Like, it's just, at what point are those decisions made to kind of start selling a product that isn't in that shape? And I know a lot of games don't come together until the final months of production, and often it's a work in progress. You know, the vertical slices you see at E3 are just what the developers intend the game to look like. But if you have such a fracture of this scale, where you've got a bunch of different studios working on arguably, you know, Microsoft's most important game of at least the past couple of years, because they were going to sell a console with it, you know what I mean? Into the fact that there's no one there kind of in the middle of everything, kind of grabbing all of these different studios, grabbing all of these different departments and saying, look, this is the vision, this is what you need to do, is like baffling. And it's not like it's unheard of. It's not like Halo's the first game to kind of suffer these problems, but it's with a game this important. Like, how do these mistakes keep on happening? Because we hear about them time and time again.
Well, I'll tell you. So they've got, there's 2 other big things here. One is that I forgot that there was the Halo TV show being made, but they Showtime are apparently getting a Halo TV show made. And another point here is that 343's management just prioritized that over the game. They were way more just focused on that, as opposed to, like, you know, wondering about deadlines and how the game was coming together. And that gets noted as a big old deal. Like I said, I forgot the Halo TV show was even happening. So that just shows proper corporate thinking 101 of like, well, TV is a bigger medium and we need to go down that route, and like, there's more ages we can tap into and whatever. But the other thing to take alongside that is that creative director Tim Longo left in August 2019. Now, a creative director is like your Cory Barlog, your Hideo Kojima, your Ken Levine. He's the guy that everybody goes to. He's the nexus for everything, or they are the nexus for everything, depending on the project. And in his case, Tim Longo left in August 2019, potentially because of, you know, all the different sort of things that had led to that point. He was replaced internally by Mary Olsen, who'd been with 343 for 7 years, obviously knew the project pretty well. She then left after 2 months. The reason that she left was to join a team called Midwinter Entertainment, a different dev. So assumedly it was one of those decisions she couldn't say no to. But you still had a creative director leaving after 2 months, and the report doesn't mention any follow-up. So it doesn't seem like they've been able to get someone back into that spearheading position to guide the project over the finish line, which reminds me of Anthem when Casey Hudson left. They rotated through a bunch of different people. Hudson came back, and then post-launch, Anthem has gone through like 2 or 3 more sort of producers and lead creative people that are supposed to get the project going. It's always almost like a smoking gun of how things are going to go if the creative director, the person who's supposed to bring it all together, just says, actually, I can't, and leaves instead.
100%. Like, a creative director on a franchise like Halo should be like, it should be like a dream project, you know what I mean? And the fact that you lose so many in quick succession like this, it is reflective of stories we have heard before, like what's been going on with BioWare, like, you know, a bunch of other different disastrous games all lose their creative director. And the biggest kind of cause of death for these titles, essentially, from the anonymous sources that, you know, are in these reports, always, you know, points towards a lack of leadership. The fact that, you know, hundreds, if not thousands of people make these big games. You've got a bunch of different departments, often ones that can't do anything until they get the go-ahead from another department to give them the assets or whatever. And without a kind of like centralized vision or leadership, like I said, you just do get these situations where it's kind of everyone just working against each other. And it's like, I know that's kind of compounded when everyone's working from home and stuff, and that's certainly an issue, but it would have been a problem regardless, because you've got a bunch of different international studios all communicating over the internet anyway, encountering these same problems, and there's no real fix for it, at least internally, from these studios yet, even though this is how, in the modern age, like, games are made. And we've had some absolute horror stories about outsourcing, even though outsourcing is kind of like, it's more or less the gaming equivalent, I think, of reshoots. You know, reshoots in the movie universe, they have a stigma attached to them, even though they are quite common. I think outsourcing has a similar thing in the gaming universe, where if something's outsourced, people go, well, why is it not done internally? And there are many reasons, and they're not always bad, but the fact of the matter here is, it seems like it's happening on a much larger scale without anything kind of like connecting the dots, and teams are going off to create something, bringing it back. It's not being what they wanted, it's not gone with the vision, and then that's created like a bunch of different problems. And again, it's like, it feels like, you know, these developers, these creators just have completely different perspectives on what they want this game to be and what they want the Halo brand to be, which is why you get, like you mentioned there, the creators putting more priority on the Halo TV show, because maybe they have more direct control over that than they do the actual game they're trying to sell a console with.
Yeah. There's also the reality of everything that we've been through this year, which the report notes, that just the sheer reality of splitting development across, you know, having to work remotely, and the fact that before that they had all these sort of communication problems, this idea of all these outsourced people with assumedly different points of code and the way they're bringing the game together. And to bring it full circle, like you said, like, you know, every game is on fire until it's not, which is like, it tends to be right at the end of a given dev cycle. So it seems like Halo Infinite itself has just kind of struggled to come together, and it doesn't help that, you know, like, there's the management problems, there's outsourcing problems, there's the creative directors leaving. It all kind of adds up to the fact that the vision that we saw is about as good as they could do. But it also makes you wonder how much more time they're going to need, because, like, at this stage they don't have a creative director, or it doesn't seem like they do. And then it's like, do they still manage to ship in the first half of the year next year, or do they just wait and do the 20th anniversary thing instead?
I don't know. Honestly, I don't know what it's going to take to kind of like get this up to shape. I hope they do have a plan in place, and I hope they do have, you know, someone coming in to properly steer the ship. And if that takes until the end of 2021, I think that's fine. You know what I mean? Like, we were talking about it when it was delayed. For me, like, delay it as long as is necessary, as long as you get a good Halo product at the end, because the ship's already sailed on this being a system seller for the Xbox One X at launch, at least in my opinion. Even if you rushed out in the first half of 2021, like, it wasn't there for launch. So at that point, in my eyes, which aren't the eyes of a Microsoft head honcho businessman, I must have to add, but I just see, well, if it wasn't there for launch, just delay it until you get it right, because you need to get it right. And, you know, I personally, selfishly, want a really good Halo game to be able to play on the next gen Xbox, like, just from a pure fan level. That's what I want the end result to be.
Yeah, Xbox's response would be like Don Matrix style. Well, we've already got one. It's already there. Just go pop the Master Chief Collection in. How ironic is it that
finally works.
Yeah, their approach to the next generation is to sort of channel the ghost of Don Matrick and just be like, well, you've already got all the games, you don't need new ones, it's just fine, just work it out. There's kind of poetry in that, even though it is poetry that's written on a note that's buried in the soil. But yeah, let us know what you think down in the comments below of the general state of Halo, the fact that, we kind of know why it's ended up in the state that it's in, and give us a prediction on when you might think it'll drop across 2021. For now, I've been Scott from WhatCulture.com.
I've been Josh from WhatCulture.com.
And we'll catch you next time. Bye.
Bye.